Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into the explainer of one of the absolute most fascinating minds of the ancient world. We're talking about Eratosthenes of Cyrene. Born way back in the 3rd century BC, this guy was a philosopher, a mathematician, a poet, and eventually the chief librarian at the legendary Library of Alexandria. I mean, he was just an absolute giant of intellect. But what makes his story so incredibly compelling isn't just what he discovered, it's this totally bizarre paradox surrounding his historical reputation. To really get why, we need to look at the two very different nicknames his contemporaries actually gave him.
So, according to the Suda, which is this massive ancient encyclopedia, Eratosthenes had some seriously jealous critics. They mockingly called him Beta, the second letter of the Greek alphabet. Their whole argument? They claimed he was basically just a number two. Someone who dabbled in literally every subject but was never the absolute best at any single one of them. But his devoted fans had a completely different title for him. They called him Pentaflaus. Now, in the ancient Olympic Games, the Pentaflaus was the ultimate all-rounder, an athlete who competed in 5 grueling events. His supporters basically saw him as an Olympian of the mind. So, the question is, was he really just a runner-up or a champion of knowledge?
Section 1. Measuring the Earth. How to weigh the world with a stick.
Okay, let's dive into this by checking out his most famous experiment. Eratosthenes is best remembered as the very first known person to calculate the circumference of the Earth. And the crazy part? He didn't do it with satellites or lasers. He figured out the size of the whole globe using nothing but shadows, a well, and professional distance walkers. It's just sheer intuitive geometric brilliance. So here's how he did it. Step 1. He learned that down south in the city of Cyrene, the sun shone straight down a deep well exactly at noon on the summer solstice. Literally no shadows were cast. Step 2, at that exact same time in his home city of Alexandria, he stuck a vertical rod, a gnomon, in the ground and measured the angle of the shadow it cast. It came out to about 7.2 degrees, which, if you think about it, is roughly 1/50th of a full 360-degree circle. Step 3. He reasoned that the distance between those two cities had to represent exactly 1/50th of the Earth's total curvature. So he pulled data from professional distance walkers, known as bematists, who had recorded the trip from Alexandria to Cyrene as 5,000 stadia. Multiply 5,000 by 50, and boom, you get 250,000 stadia.
Now here's where it gets really fun. The crucial point here is how mind-bogglingly close he actually got to the real answer. When you put his math up against our modern technology, the results are just incredible. Depending on the exact historical length of a stadion, his calculation translates to approximately 40,338 kilometers. Modern satellite measurements put the Earth at just over 40,075 kilometers. I mean, that is an error margin of less than 1%, from a guy with a stick. And here's the absolute wildest part. His method was mathematically sound, but he actually made 2 completely false assumptions. First, he assumed Cyrene was exactly on the Tropic of Cancer. Second, he assumed it lay directly south of Alexandria on the exact same meridian. Both of those are technically false, but the errors fortuitously canceled each other out to give him this stunningly accurate number. Sometimes you're smart, and sometimes you're just a little bit lucky too.
Section 2. The Father of Geography. Drawing the Lines of the World.
Let's see how all this math builds into an entirely new field of study. Because, well, simply measuring the outside of the world wasn't enough for him. He wanted to map everything on it. As the head of the Library of Alexandria, he was practically swimming in travel books and the old records from Alexander the Great's conquests. It really makes you wonder, right? How could a supposedly number 2 scholar invent a scientific discipline that didn't even exist yet? And this brilliantly illustrates the absurdity of his critics. He literally invented the word. Geography is a term coined by Eratosthenes himself. In his massive 3-volume work appropriately titled Geographica, he pieced together all the fragmented travel data of his era into an organized mathematical format. He basically proved his critics entirely wrong by laying the groundwork for how we perceive our planet today.
Eratosthenes didn't just casually draw some rough coastlines on a piece of parchment. Not at all. He divided the Earth into 5 distinct climate zones. You had 2 freezing zones, 2 temperate ones, and 1 equatorial zone in the middle. He created the very first global projection map. And then he took it a massive step further by overlaying grids of overlapping parallel lines and meridians to link together every place in the world.
This allowed people, for the first time, to actually estimate distances between super remote locations. He meticulously recorded the exact locations of over 400 cities. This grid system he conceptualized, it's literally the absolute foundation of the modern GPS networks that we use on our phones every single day. Section 3. Sifting for primes, a mathematical legacy.
But being a true polymath, he couldn't just stick to the physical Earth. He was also a top-tier mathematician. Let's take a look at his incredibly elegant solution to an ancient mathematical headache, figuring out how to identify prime numbers. He came up with an algorithm we now call the sieve of Eratosthenes. It's this super simple yet incredibly powerful iterative process. Basically, you start with the first prime number, 2, and you mark all of its multiples as composite, which just means they aren't prime. Then you just move to the next unmarked number, 3, and mark all of its multiples. You just keep doing this, filtering or sieving, until only the prime numbers are left behind. It's so wildly efficient that variants of this exact ancient algorithm are still taught in modern computer science and are heavily used in cryptography today. Not bad for a runner-up, right?
Section 4. The Ultimate Pentathlons, a Mind Without Limits.
All right, so we've seen geometry, geography, and pure mathematics. Let's pivot back to resolving our core paradox, the beta versus the pantalos. To definitively settle this debate once and for all, we really have to look at the sheer volume of his other discoveries. Are you ready for this? He calculated the Earth's axial tilt with jaw-dropping precision. The famous Greek astronomer Hipparchus actually credited him with inventing the armillary sphere, which is that complex framework model of the heavens. Oh, and he realized the solar year was actually about 365.25 days long, so he went ahead and devised the calendar that added a 366-day leap year every 4th year. He practically founded scientific chronology by combing through old Egyptian and Persian records to precisely date the fall of Troy to 1184 BC. And just for fun, he even applied ratio equations to music theory, refining the mathematical tuning of the musical tetrachord. So the absolutely crucial point is this. That beta label, yeah, it was very clearly just the petty jealousy of narrow-minded academics who completely failed to comprehend a mind that refused to be put in a single box.
Sadly, though, even a mind without limits is still housed in a mortal body. Eratosthenes reached the impressive age of 80, but his eyesight finally began to fail him. Now, for a man whose entire identity, whose very soul, was intimately tied to reading in the great library and constantly observing the intricate details of the natural world, this loss was totally devastating. Depressed and unable to continue his life's work, historical records indicate he actually made the incredibly tough choice to end his own life by voluntary starvation.
He died in Alexandria, far away from his hometown of Cyrene, but his brilliance was deeply, deeply revered by his peers. Consider the words of this genuine ancient epitaph written by Dionysius of Cyzicus. He wrote, "A softening old age with no darkening through disease quenched you and put you to deserved sleep, pondering great things, Eratosthenes." It's just a beautiful tribute, isn't it? One that really acknowledges a long life spent entirely in the pursuit of great things. Which finally leaves us with this provocative thought. Was the man who weighed the Earth with a stick, who literally gave us the word geography, who charted the stars and sorted out prime numbers, was he really just number 2? Or does the incredible legacy of Eratosthenes prove that sometimes the absolute greatest genius doesn't come from rigid tunnel vision, but from an unstoppable multidisciplinary curiosity about everything under the sun? Take that thought with you the next time you're learning something new. Thanks so much for diving into the source material with me today, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.